I want to hear your opinion of these early avatar projects being tokenized on Namecoin as some of the earliest PFPs in existence. Do you think there's some provenance to this claim? Do you think that those 8-bit, do you think there's some credence to that value of it being historically significant?
Absolutely. There are people out there that would say anything before blockchain doesn't count. But in the real world, there was lots of things before the blockchain. I'd look at Beeple, and he's one of the space's biggest artists. But frankly, Beeple was creating digital art for a long, long time before he tokenized anything. It's just not true that there wasn't any kind of provenance beforehand. You can prove things by using the Wayback Machine, or there are ways of quantifying things. Don't get me wrong, I'm a great believer in the blockchain, but to sort of pretend that anything beforehand didn't happen is not really how the world works.
For a different type of episode today, but something that's very important. We're going to be uncovering the history of pre-NFT PFPs. That's right. I'm here with DHW. He's we were discussing in my DMs about a month ago kind of the history and all the information that he had put together. And, you know, it's quite extensive. It's not NFTs, but it's everything that's existed before the NFT space, which was the avatar space from 2003 up until the late 2000s. And we even saw on Namecoin, for those who collect Namecoin, some of those avatars actually made their way over to Namecoin. So I'm here with DHW. He was one of the co-founders of EgoBots, which was back in 2003. And he has his own project called WAGMIES, which is taking the 3D version of those 2003 PFPs and putting on the blockchain in the form of a non-fungible token. So DHW, man, I appreciate you for doing this, and I'm excited to learn pretty much everything fresh and new.
Fantastic. I'm really pleased to be here, Jake. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it. As I said, I'm a bit of a podcast virgin, so you're going to have to be gentle with me.
I will take very good care of you. So as pre-NFT PFPs goes, in that state of the Web 2 world before tokenization, they weren't called PFPs, they were called avatars. And we began to see them, as you mentioned, in 2003. But before we go into that, tell us a little bit about how you got into the avatar space. What were you doing before 2003 that led you into creating digital avatars that represents identity of those who are on the computer?
Bit of a long story, but
hey, we got time. We got time, okay. DHW.
Good show. So basically, my background's advertising, animation, VFX, games. Early on in my life, I was inspired by early CGI, so Pixar, Pacific Data Images. They did a little short called Locomotion, which I really enjoyed, and I thought, well, I need to get into that space. So, but back then, being a commercial digital artist was really quite expensive. You needed mainframe supercomputers, custom built sub-zero machine rooms, and million dollar price tags. So. But as it happened, I was just in the right place at the right time. I was working with WPP, which was one of the largest ad agencies in the world, and I managed to buy some very expensive kit and get it up and running. So that was a fun time in advertising, and I guess over that period, things kind of progressed a little bit. We started doing a little bit of TV work. So in the 90s, I set up my own 3D animation and VFX company. We did broadcast idents, TV ads, title sequences. So lots of CGI mixed with live action. So occasionally we'd be on film shoots and stuff. So that was a fun time. And it's relevant to my PFP stuff because obviously with this knowledge of 3D, I was able to take that and use that to shape my avatar / PFP project. So from there, I really just mentioning this because again, it's relevant to the avatar PFP stuff. I spent a bit of time in video games, video design, designing computer game titles. So that was for consoles like Dreamcast and PlayStation. But if I skip forward from there to 2003, that's when I started working on my own PFP, which was, as I say, 3D and 3D rendered.
When you started working on EgoBots in 2003, what was the perception of digital identity, or just call it internet avatars at the time? Was there any precedent that was set between any projects that kind of give you inspiration to do this?
Well, the first one that came out really was WAGMIES. That was early 2003. I actually made a timeline. I think you've seen that.
Yeah, I'll pull it up here in a second.
So that was early 2003, and they were the first avatar company, avatar-based company. They actually started out as a sort of dating type business, and from there, when they had their website redesigned, which happened to be in Glasgow, which was where I was based at the time. So they excuse me, I'm just going to grab a drink of water.
You are okay. So for those that are listening, I pulled up DHW's historical PFP timeline, work in progress V1.1. It says it's incomplete and DYOR. As you mentioned, WAGMIES, it says is February 2003. And there was one before it as well that's called Habbo Hotel. And you put in parentheses beta, and the beta asterisk says beta tag included where known, no beta tag. So it's unknown. So after you're done explaining WAGMIES, can you explain what Habbo Hotel is? Which is about 2 years before WAGMIES.
Yeah. I think just on that, the premise between, I think there's a difference between avatars for games and avatars for social media. That's a premise that I've kind of just noticed hanging around in the HNFT spaces, in like NFT relics and other Discord channels. There seems to be this kind of differentiation between something that was an avatar for a game and something that was an avatar for social media.
That's a good pickup. You're absolutely right on that.
So Habbo Hotel, though, was a video game where you could go in and have your own little space, your own apartment or wherever, and you could put in furniture. I wasn't particularly active in Habbo Hotel, but I just know it's there, and for me, I think that might be where the concept came from for WAGMIES. That's speculative because I didn't create WAGMIES, but I think that's probably where it might have come from. So WAGMIES, as I say, they were in Glasgow, and I should say that we in Scotland is another word for small or mini. I don't know whether that's something you're familiar with over in the States, but so that's where the wee part comes from. So you were a kind of missed connection dating company, and WAGMIES, as I say, were part of the website redesign, and I think maybe it just sort of got a wee bit lucky, perhaps. It was a good break for them. I don't think that they quite expected WAGMIES to be accepted as readily as they were. They quickly achieved global recognition, and people like Paris Hilton and Justin Bieber had their own WAGMIES. So after that, you pivoted away from the original business into WAGMIES avatars, and so for me that was using that definition of a social PFP. That was where the origin of the PFP came from. And see, I was in Glasgow. I was familiar with what was going on locally, and so I kind of looked at what they were doing and thinking, well, that's great. That's not how I would do it. And from there, I kind of started working on my own product.
So WAGMIES is essentially the de facto beginning of this PFP idea. Before we move on to some of the rest of the ones, how do you go about researching avatar projects on the internet, especially so early within the social media history of the internet? For NFTs, it's difficult, but it's a little bit more simplistic because you could go through Etherscan or one of the block explorers and find a contract and then kind of dissect it from there. What is your research strategy for uncovering some of these prehistoric avatar projects?
Well, for me, it was actually reasonably easy because I was there, and so I, insider dealing or whatever. But yeah, so I when I was working on my product, I did some a competitor analysis when I was raising money. And I should say that the way I do things is that I if I'm going to do something, I don't do my research first. What I do is I do all my creative stuff and trying, blue sky thinking, trying to pan out how work out how I see something unfolding. And then I go and do my competitor analysis and stuff. And the reason I do it that way is so that I don't get taken down a particular corridor of thinking where you sort of, oh, well, this is what they've done. This is what they've done. So I that's the parameters I'm working within. So yeah, I'm basically up until round about, if you just scroll down, so down to about Diddy's 2006, I really wasn't aware of much beyond that prior to researching the timeline. So in terms of the, to that sort of 2006, 2007 point, it was info I knew. And then from 2007 through to, I think the timeline ends about 2011. That was, you can search on Google using dates. So I basically went through searching, only receiving results in a particular time frame. So let's say 2008, and I'd go through those, and I'd regularly cross-check that with the Wayback Machine. I'm sure you're familiar with that already, Jake. It's a website where they basically take snapshots of websites. So there's a sort of rich vein of history of the web there, which you can go back and see what was happening on a particular website, during a particular month.
Yeah, particularly. So I'm sitting down here at the bottom of the timeline from 2008 to 2011, and I notice a few tokenized PFPs that exist on Namecoin. First, you have Face Your Manga is the earliest one. Is created, as you stated here, November 2008. There's definitely a collection of like 20 or 30 of these on Namecoin, and then there's about a 3-year gap, and you see 8-bit, which is known as Blockheads on Namecoin, which sells for 50 ETH or more generally at a time.
Wow. And
that was created January 2011 by 8-bit. And now they have an NFT project called 8-bit Me, which was created in 2022. And then right underneath it, Androidify by Larva Labs, which there are 6 of them that exist on Namecoin as well. And as you know, Larva Labs is the creator of CryptoPunks. So a lot of people don't realize that they actually had some PFP experience before they stepped into the ring of non-fungible tokens. And to me, those are probably drastically undervalued. I mean, there's only 6 of them that exist on Namecoin, and that has its own complexities, which we'll dive into in a little bit. But I do want to head a little bit up or earlier into the timeline and get back to where you were with the beginning at WAGMIES. And then right after it, you have Second Life, which is a game which was created in 2003. And then right under that, you see kind of the first real big company step into the ring, which is called Yahoo Avatars, which was in April 2004. It looks like it was a game. Can you tell us a little bit about what it meant for Yahoo to enter the avatar space? At the time, was it a big deal, or was it more of some sort of experimentation for an emerging internet company at the time to try to figure out what this identity thing is?
I'm not sure if it was a big deal. I mean, it could well have been, but for me, I looked at them. I have to say, I have my taste wasn't something that was aligned to their product at that time, I think, I looked at them and thought, well, they had gone for quite a kind of cartoony feel, which is fine, but their approach was to go with a tall and thin avatar. Which makes perfect sense for today's smartphones. But back then, smartphones had little keypads. They weren't touch screens, and the screens were small and landscape. So I always felt that they hadn't quite got that particularly right. But it's Yahoo, so I'm sure they were wildly successful.
Yeah, indeed. There's one above it that's put spring 2004 unverified, which looks like it's an avatar that was built into some sort of chat room. Maybe it was AOL or something. But right under that, you have Me Goes. And all of these kind of actually look pretty similar between WAGMIES, Me Goes, Dude Factory. It's just like... It almost looks very similar to the PFPs that exist today, where it's just like these very thick black lines that outlines the body with like pastel coloring, trying to mimic, reality in this like 2D fashion. It's quite interesting to see a lot of the similarities. But as you see, Me Goes, and then Dude Factory 2005 has a dog. And then we get to you, to EgoBots. And let's dive into this a little bit. What was your intention of EgoBots at the time of creation? Was it for fun, or did you see a business opportunity? And how did EgoBots differ from all of these preceding avatar projects that came before you?
EgoBots, I think I had, during my let me wind it back to my kind of TV, 3D side of things. That was a service business. And basically I wanted to create products. So it was definitely a commercial kind of push. So basically I was the creator, the art director, producer, owner, tea maker, whatever you want to call it. EgoBots were cross-platform, so they were on the web and early smartphones. And I contracted a company called MMI, a web development company. They had that was the same company that created WAGMIES, and I'd basically known MMI for a long time. So I basically used my broadcast 3D animation and VFX experience to make EgoBots feel like an entertainment product. And I used my sort of game design experience to gamify that product too. So I think I had reasonably grand visions, Jake. I'd outline 20-year roadmap, and which is 20 years about now. And I have to say there should be flying cars and restaurants on the moon by now. So I saw it going a long way, and I positioned EgoBots as digital clones, and that was because I envisioned them becoming intelligent, little kind of characters that could, go and perform independent tasks. So similar to bots, or the way AI is going just now. Earlier on in the visuals you're showing just now, you saw a character, Sonny, he's actually the pimp character at the top of the screen there. He sort of introduced EgoBots. I was a big NWA fan, and Sonny's named after a character in an Ice Cube track called "Who's the Mac" from America's Most Wanted, which I have to say I'm old enough to say that I did go to that gig on that tour. So the Sonny character was a mixture of the Who's the Mac character and Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch, the movie, which was 2004, I think it was, and Snoop Dogg was the chap who played that character. So, to the best of my knowledge, EgoBots was the first ever 3D or 3D rendered PFP. And one of the things we did, as I say, we gamified things, but one of the things we did was we created something called, I say we, the project, created something called EgoText, which is, I think, quite interesting. It was a core part of the product roadmap from day one, really. And I think the interesting part about EgoText is if you look at the basics there, you've got a PFP and you've got a message, a short message, and it's not a million miles away from the Twitter we all use today. So, yeah.
Oops, sorry. I forgot to put the mute on that. For those that are listening, I'm playing a bunch of the videos, and right now I'm playing WAGMIES, which is the PFP or the NFT version of your old EgoBots project. It's quite interesting to look at all of this stuff and to see some of the similarities, as you could see here, the original and the copy. You mentioned though, while you were talking, that EgoBots was the first 3D avatar project. After you put this out, did those who were in the avatar builder space take notice to that? Were there any claims or any attributions that were given to your work of kind of pioneering or innovating the avatar space?
Yeah, I mean, it was critically acclaimed. We won Scottish website of the year at the time, and we also, there was a London Design Week had a couple of competitions, and we were in the last four, like up against people like BMW, Coca-Cola, that sort of thing, for apps and websites. So it did achieve some critical acclaim, and people that we started partnerships with. We had a partnership with the Ministry of Sound. They're a club and a record label in London.
It's a very popular one too, by that.
Yeah. And so they when they saw it, they were pretty blown away, to be honest. So it was there was a good reception. So yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think right here I'm playing this video, which is from that awards ceremony. It's kind of funny looking back at kind of the old videos. You could tell this was recorded on a VHS, giving me some throwbacks too.
Well, that stuff there is from my animation company, which was the 90s. So that was in the run up to EgoBots, and that would be where I kind of picked up a lot of the experience that I turned into or used to turn EgoBots into the product it became, and that was against what people had done with WAGMIES, which was, we'll just do something like that, but something a wee bit, change a little bit here or there. And my approach was never to progress like that.
Yeah, no kidding. You seems like you're really into it at the time. So what ended up happening before we move back down the timeline? What ended up happening with EgoBots? How long did it exist? What was the user base, and how many? Do you know how many avatars were created during its lifetime?
Yeah, that was one of the disappointments, to be honest with you, of the whole thing. I don't think we can achieve the heights that we wanted to in terms of market penetration. We really didn't make huge progress there. One of the key issues that we hit, it was funding related, but as we launched, we had a price per EgoBot, and basically as that sort of started kicking in, then a freemium model appeared out of nowhere, and that did make things pretty challenging for us, to be honest.
So what were you guys charging?
It was like, I think it was £5 in the UK, and it would have been something like $5 in the US. It might have been less in the US because we only had the messaging in the UK, so feasibly the US price might have been a little bit less.
And what was your user base doing with these avatars? Were they just using it as their image in AOL, and were they just using it in AOL and AIM at the time? Were they using it somehow and integrating it into games that existed on the internet?
No, there was no well, not that I'm aware of. There was no game aspect to it, other than we did allow or enable people to have a PSP, a sized a file, which meant they could customize their PSP. So yeah, sorry, I've lost my thinking there.
You're okay. But so when did you decide to close up shop for EgoBots?
Well, yeah, I think it would have been about 2007. I just got to the point where the business model wasn't working for us in that marketplace, and certainly in Scotland, if you've raised money and you haven't quite delivered on the things that you said you were going to do in your business plan, then you can't raise further money. And we got into that sort of sticky point where you're thinking, well, what do we do here? And I kind of kept going for a little while, but eventually I thought this is something that's frustratingly not going to happen just now, and it's always been for me the one that got away. So I'm actually quite grateful for the opportunity to come back and have another crack at it with WAGMIES.
Yeah, it is quite interesting. As we move down the timeline, you have Mies, which is in 2006, which looks like a game, maybe Guitar Hero or something like that. And then you have DDs, which is just an avatar project. And the one that I noticed is Nintendo Mies, which is the avatar for the Wii, the video game. Yes. As you've done some research into this, what was this a notable achievement within the avatar space? And what are your thoughts on Nintendo Mies?
Well, I like them. For me, they moved things forwards in that they were avatars that you could actually use and move in video games. And although that had been done before, it just had a different feel about the customization of your me. Previously, I think in video games, a lot of the the games you would get standard characters that you could choose rather than necessarily building things up. So for me, it was quite a big thing. And when I looked at it, I thought, yeah, I saw that as a big threat to our business at the time. And although it was on the game side of things, it just seemed to me that was where we needed to be going. And by then, we were struggling with our business model.
Interesting. And then as we move down, Zwinkies, which was February 2007, you have an unknown one that says Hottie. It looks like a girl. It's an avatar project. Couldn't really tell. And then Powerpuff Girls, Powerpuff Yourself in March 2007. That's another big name drop there. I watched Powerpuff Girls myself. Yeah, I'll flame myself. I watched it. And as you move down, then you have Simpsonize Me from June 2007. So you're starting to see within a year, you see Nintendo, Powerpuff Girls, and Simpsons all jumping into the avatar space. Maybe there was something here. Did you ever dabble in Simpsonize Me? I don't think I ever did. Do you know the relevance of this project? Did it set a foundation for some of these, for some of the other avatar builders to come into the space from maybe like from a big company or corporation to kind of enter? What's your give us the 411 on Simpsonize Me?
Well, yeah, Simpsonize Me. I noticed, and I liked it. I back then I was a bit of a Simpsons fan, so yes, I did go on there and use a Simpsonize Me. I even had Simpsons video games. So yeah, it for me it was good to see bigger companies coming in there. I'm ashamed to say I really didn't notice the Powerpuff Girls at the time, but they're there, and it's certainly something that's notable.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm gonna pull up this Namecoin timeline here in a second, and because the end there's a bunch of the tokenizations that you start seeing put in the blockchain from 2008. Then you see Microsoft Minimize Me is July 2008, and then October 2009 South Park Avatar Creator. I actually think I created a South Park one at the time. That's when I was in high school. Dating myself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about both of these projects, and then I'm going to cover Face Your Manga because I'm going to pull up something.
Yeah, I really don't know an awful lot about those, to be honest, Jake. These were projects that I discovered when I was trying to put my timeline together. So you sound as though you know a lot more about these than I do.
Yeah, so those avatars, they never made it to the blockchain, at least not that I'm familiar with. The one I do want to bring up, though, it says Face Your Manga, which is November 2008. If you go look at this timeline, you see the manga. They call it Manga Avatars, which the first one is tokenized in March 2014. So you see there's about a 6-year gap between both of those projects popping up and making their way into the Namecoin. And also on this Namecoin NFT collection of stored images, if you move down, you have 8-bit, which is the blockheads, and then you have Androidify as well. And if you come over to the Namecoin timeline, it's right here. So you see blockheads, which was March 2014. And I don't think Androidify is on here, but I'll pull that one up in a second. I wanted to show you, were you aware that these avatars had made it to Namecoin and were tokenized, or that were tokenized history?
I knew that 8-bits was tokenized. And again, this is down to research. When I was putting my timeline together, I wasn't aware of it actually at the time. But for me, the fact that 8-bit was a kind of PFP, social media avatar, in 2011, and roughly the same time, Androidify by Lava Labs was there. To me, it's almost like the missing link, as it were. When I found those two, I thought, yeah, there is definitely a link between pre-blockchain NFTs and the ones that are tokenized. And really the key sort of thing is that there is the way they're made, and they're basically there are multiple interchangeable assets. So you can have a red hat, a blue jeans, red dress, beard, cigarette, etc., etc. And that's how you create a custom avatar. And basically, in January 2011 and February 2011, 8-bit and Androidify were made like that, and that's where the kind of link between that and the later 10Ks, 10K PFPs, as you'd know today, has come from.
Yeah, so I was comparing. So you have Face Your Manga, and then you have Avatar Maker. I couldn't tell which one of those is the ones that's on Namecoin, but either way, both of those predate 8-bit and Androidify by at least a year to 3 years. Wow. So if you're a collector of manga avatars, man, you might be finding yourself some alphas, the early original PFP, but maybe not the first tokenized one, but the first avatar project created that, or I guess you could say is the oldest, but not in terms of the UTXO or the chain of provenance. I'm pulling up here now the Androidify Larva Labs and first Web3 PFP use case that Nick.bit had written. It's a beautiful actual article. Highly recommend people to go and watch it. As you can see here in the video of Androidify, it's actually quite funny to watch because you see, I think it's John Hall in one of these videos is testing it in a commercial, but this is kind of it was a project between Larva Labs and Android, the phone, creating avatars. I believe it was wildly successful too. I believe it had like 6 million downloads or something similar to that effect. So maybe it was like one of the most successful, 10 million downloads here it says. Wow. So maybe one of the most successful avatar builders ever in creation. Were you DHW, were you aware of these facts?
Well, no, not at the time. I have to hold my hands up. Not at the time. It wasn't something that I was aware of. But again, when I was doing my research, it was something that flagged up, and for me, it was music to my ears. I thought, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, look, you even see here on the CryptoPunks Twitter account, check out Androidify, super fun avatar creator that we developed with Google Creative Labs, February 14th, 2011. So over 6 years before they even published the first version of CryptoPunks. Oh, here's the video that I was talking about. It's So for those who don't know, that's John Watkinson. That's one of the co-founders of Larva Labs, dancing with his Androidify on a video.
Awesome. That would be interesting to know whether that was live. In other words, the motion was captured live and then translated onto the 2D asset, or whether it was composited afterwards. It looked as though it might have been live. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so much fun to dig through all this old history and then make those connections, because they are tokenized on Namecoin, as I mentioned. I want to try to find, and you can even see these comparisons. If you see CryptoPunks 2017 Androidify, you see a lot of the same characteristics and attributes are applied overwards. You see that they definitely took the history. It's like almost identical. In this image, there's 20 attributes that are pretty much the same thing. You see the blonde hair and the refractor glasses combo. You see the spiked hair, sunglasses, square glasses, and the beard combo, right? So many different combos. The hat and the blue and blue and red glasses, just a ton of crossover between that. And so that they were, how they were minted was actually through a app called OneName. OneName was a image authenticator that was built on top of Namecoin that allowed you to basically have kind of like your own white page that people could send Bitcoin to. Very unique. You even see right here, Vitalik using OneName to receive Bitcoin and the images. So you see down here where it says you/blah, blah, blah. That's the person that it's related to the person's Twitter account. Although I know there was some ways to fake that in the early component of it. So it's not all completely authentic. But going to Androidify, these are the 6 Androidify images that were tokenized in 2014 and 2015 on Namecoin. They even have one of the zombies, man. Whoever has the zombie is probably doing pretty well. I know Leonidas has a few. I know Nick.bit owns a few. I think Punisher owns one. I don't know who the other one is. So some OGs in the space, in the historical NFT space, commandeering some early PFP history. Absolutely incredible to see and to follow. But DHW, man, as we go through this timeline, and we end down here at Androidify, and there's Clay Yourself and a few others. We must now move on to your project, the revitalization of EgoBots as WAGMIES, as you put here, WAGMIES with built-in 2003 and 2005 PFP DNA heritage. Tell us what the differences are here. I'm going to pull up the website while you explain to us what are the similarities and the differences between EgoBots and WAGMIES, and about the 17-year, 18-year difference in between.
Well, as I say, I've rebranded EgoBots to WAGMIES and rebooted it. I guess what I did was I managed to find the old original assets, and when I looked at them, I thought that really I could do with making them a wee bit more dystopian. So anything that you see that's 3D on any of the images is the actual 3D from EgoBots. And anything else that is maybe 2D, or things like T-shirts and other items, I basically created those and as a 2D texture map sort of thing, and added them onto the original 3D. So I've really just tried to bring them up to date in terms of I think maybe. Back in 2003, 2005, they were quite straight-laced, and now they're a wee bit more degen.
You have to adjust to it. Prehistorical NFTs, right on the website. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. It's our belief that the way today's PFP NFTs are generated from multiple interchangeable assets for the use as social PFPs, not games, actually started in 2003 with the launch of WAGMIES, a simple 2D avatar maker. And then we showed the evidence, and that we went over and discussed. When is the mint? When mint? When mint, DHW?
Whoa. Well, if I'm honest, we're not in a hurry at the moment. I mean, most of the project was ready quite a long time ago. So I was working on the assets at this time last year. So they're all done and dusted and sitting waiting. I think, given that we're in a bear market, the turmoil that I'm looking at just now, I just think to myself, how do I move forward with this? If the market says it should be a free mint, so okay, let's try and do a free mint. That gives you some visibility problems, obviously. But anyway, so let's look at doing a free mint. And then you're thinking, well, so we'll have to focus on royalties, and obviously, royalties have been up and down. So we're in a bit of a waiting game just now. It's kind of hard to see a way forwards when you're not quite sure how you're going to monetize it. And I do want to monetize it so that I can I can do some more stuff. What we're not doing is selling a roadmap. I think that's technically, it's not technically, but legally a rather challenging area. Yeah, so I know what we want to do. I've been in it for a long time, Jake. Yeah, it's, as I say, it's the one that got away from me. So I'm keen to try and move forwards. But just now, again, from a business model point of view, it's hard to see how you move forwards. And I think some of that probably comes down to timing, just trying to make sure that there's a bull market beginning to develop. We are low on visibility at the moment, and I do need to start building those things out. But again, unless you're bringing on board influencers, then that's got its own challenges because it's more difficult to do a free mint then.
We're waiting. Never launch the bottom of a bear market. You want to launch into the hype to maximize that value so you can continue to go and build other things. Do we know a rough supply? Have you thought about how many WAGMIES we're going to be able to mint? Yeah,
there's going to be 11,000, 111. There's going to be 11111.
Wow, playing the meme numbers.
Yeah, and it's a big mint, and people would say, well, that's a lot of NFTs to shift, but I don't look at it that way. I think if you have less NFTs, so I think there's been a lot of releases in the bear market that have gone for I don't know 5,000 or 3,000 or whatever it happens to be. That's a negative, and the reason it's negative is it restricts your liquidity. And the bigger you go, the more liquidity you've got. So I'm kind of keen to, stick with that number, and we will if it takes a little bit of time. I mean, Board 8 didn't mint out straight away. I think they took a week or something to mint. And they've become successful. So you don't really need to mint out in 3 minutes or whatever it happens to be. Yeah, I'm looking at the bigger picture here, and so we're sticking with that kind of large number.
I pulled up here, which is linked to your Twitter account. AI art seeded from my oil paintings and artworks. It's apparently you're an AI artist yourself.
Yeah.
Tell us what is this? I'm just curious. I know maybe it's not the PFP thing or the history people are looking for, but this art looks pretty cool. Pretty cool. When did you start doing this?
Thank you. Yeah, I started doing that last year, and basically I after EgoBots had a bit of a wilderness year, well, a few years, and I did some oil paintings and other stuff. It was kind of angry painting, which is the less well known cousin of angry sex. So we, I kind of did all these angry paintings, and so when AI came along, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna start seeing what I can do with my own a IP basically. So that's what I started out with was using my own images. I don't use any prompts, so I'm not sort of sitting there sort of making artwork by typing in prompts. That a lot of people do that, and that's fine. That's not the process I use. And I've just you're in the gallery there. It's kind of the earlier stuff that I was doing, and more recently I've been taking, I guess, just taking a step further where I've been animating. It's been more glitchy type stuff. So again, sort of playing to my strengths. I think that well, for me, other people are different, but for me, I think if you've got an NFT that has the possibility to move, then why not go down that route? These chocolatey looking characters on the right hand side there, that's a number of AI pieces that I created where it was called Death by Chocolate. And again, in my wilderness kind of dark years, I had a bit of a hard time, and when I was depressed, I'd be thinking, how could I end all this? And for me, drowning in hot chocolate was the way to go. So that's where that came from.
DHW, as we close this out, I want to hear your opinion of these early avatar projects being tokenized on Namecoin as some of the earliest PFPs in existence. Do you think there's some provenance to this claim? Do you think it's all bullshit? Or do you think that those 8-bit Androidify and Manga and some of the other ones that were built in a Web2 avatar and then minted on or registered on a Namecoin, do you think there's some credence to that value of it being historically significant?
Absolutely. There are people out there that would say anything before the blockchain doesn't count, but in the real world, there was lots of things before the blockchain. I'd look at Beeple, and he's one of the space's biggest artists. But frankly, Beeple was creating digital art for a long, long time before he tokenized anything. So it's just not true that there wasn't any kind of provenance beforehand. You can prove things by using the Wayback Machine or other records you can track down, so that there are ways of quantifying things. Yes, I don't get me wrong. I'm a great believer in the blockchain, and trustless. I'm sold. Hook, line, and sinker. I'm there, but to sort of pretend that anything beforehand didn't happen is not. It's not really how the world works. And I used to spend quite a bit of time in one or two of the discords. You'll know which one, perhaps. I just left because of the amount of toxic kind of stuff going on. It was so heavy, and you're thinking, well, I don't know. I just, for me, there's a lot of people kind of protecting their own bags rather than looking at it pragmatically and say, well, you know what? This is a big thing. The digital ownership is massive. We don't need to sort of go around sort of saying, oh, well, that didn't happen till then because of this and the next thing. There are things that happened before the blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. This is why I try to focus on this idea of collecting that I host shows on Friday, because collecting has been around for literally millennia. It's something that is built into the psychology of every human. And of course, it kind of gets abstracted on the blockchain because now it's financially incentivized even more. But I think I know which chat you're talking about. It seems to be kind of a common theme a little bit. But that's okay, everyone. Everyone is... I'm accepting of everybody to collect anything that they want. Go do what you want. But maybe just be a little bit nicer, because some of the early primitives will not house the type of technology that are succeeding them because of how primitive a lot of this stuff is. So I'm excited for you to mint your project, man. I'm going to mint some. Respect the history, respect the OGs. Be sure to keep me and the community informed on when this is. We're gonna mint some old history. You heard it here first. DHW, thank you for first reaching out and sharing this type of information. I think it's very prevalent to be able to piece together the predecessors to the tokenized profile pictures to the avatar builders of the early internet. So thank you for coming on and sharing information with us.
Well, thanks very much for having me on your show, Jake. That's been really interesting. I've learned stuff too.
Yep, we're here building it together, right? We're WAGMIES. WAGMIE, everybody. Thank you for listening and watching, and we'll WAGMIE next time.